The unwanted gift, the desert wind howled through the broken metal scraps of the alien bazaar. Jace walked with steady steps, his coat flapping behind him, the sand crunching under his boots. Traders whispered as he passed, but no one dared look him in the eye. He was human, and humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. He had just finished a supply job, hauling old starship cores to this junk world for trade. It wasn't much, but it kept his ship running and his stomach full. Jace didn't care for gold or glory. He only wanted quiet. As he passed an alleyway, he heard shouting. It was sharp, scared, and followed by a loud crash. "Get back!" someone yelled in broken galactic speech. Jace paused. Most would walk away. Smarter people, anyway. But Jace had learned that ignoring trouble didn't mean it wouldn't find you later. He stepped into the alley. A skinny alien merchant was pinned against the wall, 3 large insect-like raiders holding weapons to his throat. Jace didn't ask questions. He pulled his old plasma sidearm and fired a warning shot into the air. "Leave him," Jace said. The raiders hissed but saw the human's calm face and rough stance. They backed away, clicking in anger, and disappeared into the sandstorm outside. The merchant dropped to his knees, shaking. "You saved me," he gasped. "I have nothing to repay you with, but I must give something." "Wait, please. Wait here." Jace sighed and rubbed his temple. "I don't want anything." But the merchant was already digging through a crate nearby. Then he pulled out something, or someone. It was a girl, thin, silent. Her arms were chained in front of her. She had strange golden eyes and long, dark hair full of dust and wire. A collar blinked around her neck. "Payment," the merchant said proudly. "She's strong, quiet, yours now." Jace froze. "I don't take people as payment." "Not people," the merchant insisted. "Slave. Picked her up in a deal. She's not from here. No one wants her. But now yours." The girl didn't speak. She looked at Jace, and for a moment, he saw fear, not of pain but of being left behind. "I said no," Jace repeated. "Take her back." But the merchant was already running, shouting over his shoulder. "A gift, she's yours." Jace stood in the alley, staring at the girl. Her skin was pale, almost silver. She looked about 17 in human years. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just stared at him, waiting for a command or punishment. "Damn it," Jace muttered. He couldn't leave her there. Not with the raiders circling again. Not with her that scared. He unlocked her collar and led her gently by the wrist. "Come on," he said. "Just until I figure this out." She followed without a word. His ship, the Gray Fox, wasn't fancy, but it was home. Jace gave her a corner in the cargo hold with a blanket and some food. She sat quietly, staring at the wall, not eating. "You can eat," he said. No response. He tried again, slowly, showing her by taking a bite himself. She copied him, still, silent. Jace watched her for a while, then went to the cockpit. He looked at the collar he had removed earlier. There were strange markings etched inside, not slave codes. Something more, elegant, curious. He used his console to scan the pattern. The result stunned him. The symbol belonged to a long-lost royal bloodline, the Meraxian Empire. Destroyed 100 years ago, their line was wiped out. No survivors, yet this girl wore the crest on her collar. He returned to her and looked closer. Her eyes glowed faintly. Her back showed faded tattoo-like marks, also royal. Not slave tattoos. Ceremonial ones. "Who are you?" he asked softly. The girl looked up at him. Her lips moved, just barely. "Sarah," she whispered. Jace took a deep breath. This was no ordinary girl. She was hiding something big, and now she was on his ship. He had just accepted a slave. But what he really got was a mystery that could shake the galaxy, and someone somewhere would want her back. She shouldn't exist the next morning. The ship floated quietly in deep orbit, hidden from scanners, drifting between 2 moons. Jace sat at the console, eyes fixed on the blinking data from the girl's collar. It made no sense. The crest inside the collar didn't belong to any modern slave system. No tracking code, no price tag, no merchant brand. Instead, it matched the royal seal of the Meraxian dynasty, a symbol that hadn't been seen in nearly 100 years. The Meraxians were wiped out after a brutal civil war. Every royal was executed, or so the history feeds claimed. Jace had grown up hearing stories of their golden cities and advanced technology. But now, here was this quiet, fragile girl with that very crest on her collar, sitting just a few steps away in his cargo bay. Jace opened the door softly. She was sitting cross-legged on the metal floor, the blanket wrapped around her like a shield. Her golden eyes flicked up the moment he entered, wide but calm, as if she had been waiting. "Sarah," he said gently. Her eyes lit up slightly. She had said that name the night before, not clearly, not with strength, but enough for him to remember. "Do you understand me?" he asked. She tilted her head, then slowly nodded once. The movement was careful, unsure, like someone who had been punished too many times for doing the wrong thing. He crouched down in front of her and set a small tray between them: food, water, a warm cloth. She didn't move at first. Then she reached out, her fingers shaking, and touched the bread. She took the smallest bite, chewed, then looked at him as if waiting for approval. "You're not a slave," Jace said softly. "I think you're something else." She blinked, clearly, not understanding the words. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of awareness, of sadness, maybe even fear. Later, while she rested, Jace locked himself in the cockpit and started digging. He didn't trust his ship's outdated database, so he tapped into a private network of smugglers, pirates, and lost knowledge traders. It wasn't legal, but it got results. He sent the collar's pattern, the tattoo designs, and a blurred image of her eyes to 3 sources. Only one responded: "Do not let her be seen. If what you sent is real, she's the last living heir of Meraxia, and that makes her the key to something much bigger than you can imagine." The message was unsigned. It vanished a few seconds after appearing on his screen. Jace leaned back in his chair, heart thudding. An heir? But how? And why would someone smuggle her across the galaxy just to give her away like scrap? He stood, ready to question her again, but alarms flashed on his console. A scanning wave had touched the ship. Brief, silent, but very real. Someone was looking for them. Jace killed the lights and shifted power to stealth mode. Outside, a long black scout ship glided past like a ghost, its scanners sweeping wide. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. When the ship finally disappeared, he exhaled slowly. Then he realized they weren't just looking for a runaway slave. They were hunting royalty. A few hours later, Jace landed at a quiet fuel post on a forgotten moon. No cameras, no questions. Just dirty floors, weak coffee, and locals who minded their own business. He kept Sarah close as he stepped inside the small supply hub. She stayed behind him, eyes darting everywhere. A tall alien with pale green skin bumped into him near the counter. Before Jace could react, the man leaned in and whispered, "You should hide her better." Jace froze. "You know who she is?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he slid a small chip into Jace's pocket and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Back on the ship, Jace loaded the chip into a secure reader. It held one thing: a map. A single blinking dot deep inside the grave sector, a place called the Cradle. Sarah walked in behind him and saw the screen. "Cradle," she said softly, for the first time without fear. Jace turned to her, stunned. "You know it?" She nodded, then placed her hand gently over the blinking dot. "Home," she whispered, but neither of them noticed the small red light blinking under the hull. A silent signal. Someone had tagged the ship and was now tracking every move. Someone who knew exactly who she was and exactly what she was worth. Hunted by empires, the stars blurred past as the gray fox surged through hyperspace, its old engines groaning with each jump. Jace sat in the pilot's seat, hands tight on the controls, jaw clenched. The map from the chip was loaded into the nav system now, and the blinking dot called the cradle was growing closer with every jump. But his thoughts weren't on navigation. He kept glancing at the mirror feed, a tiny camera showing the cargo bay. She was there, sitting in the corner again, arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't look afraid anymore. Just quiet. Patient. Too patient for someone who'd been through so much. It bothered him. He had seen slaves before, broken people, hollow inside, eyes always looking down. But Sarah? She was different. Even in silence, she held something powerful inside. Not pride exactly, but presence. Like she was watching everything, remembering, waiting for something to return. His console beeped. An alert. Small energy signatures were trailing behind them, faint, but real. They were being followed. Jace adjusted course and activated a flare signal to throw off sensors. It was a trick he'd learned years ago smuggling tech past border patrols. It wouldn't shake real hunters, but it might buy them time. Sarah entered the cockpit without making a sound. She looked at the blinking light, then at Jace. "They come," she said. He nodded. "Yeah, I know." Then she stepped forward, stood beside him, and placed her hand on the screen. With a soft pulse, the console changed. Lines of data appeared. Hidden routes, ancient maps, systems Jace had never seen before. His ship's nav system wasn't capable of this. This was something else, something older, built into the ship, or maybe into her. He stared at her. "How did you do that?" Sarah didn't answer. She just tapped one of the new routes, a hidden path through dark space, uncharted and quiet. "Safe," she said. "For now." Jace followed the new course. His hands trembled slightly. He wasn't in control anymore. Not really. Not fully. And yet, he felt something else. Not fear. Not doubt. Hope. They arrived at a remote repair outpost, floating in the rings of a shattered gas giant. The place was half abandoned, held together by leftover mining drones and a few desperate engineers. Perfect for hiding. Jace made up a story, that she was a mute orphan he found in a wreck. Most believed him, but one didn't. A bounty hunter sat in the corner of the bar, hood low, drinking something thick and dark. When Sarah entered to follow Jace, the hunter's drink stopped midair. His eyes, sharp and cold, locked on her. He didn't move, didn't speak, but he activated a silent scan, and that was all it took. Within an hour, 3 different warships changed course. Encrypted messages lit up across the black market. Every faction that once feared the Meraxian Empire was now scrambling. The princess was alive. Jace didn't know yet. He only noticed the tension in the air, the sudden silence. The way the bartender looked away when Jace paid, he pulled Sarah back toward the ship. "Time to go," he said. They almost made it. Blaster fire rang out as they neared the docking bay. Jace spun, drawing his pistol, shielding Sarah behind him. 2 mercs charged from the left. He dropped them with quick, sharp shots, but more were coming. Sarah grabbed his arm, her golden eyes glowing brighter now. "Let me," she said. Then she stepped forward, raised her hand, and the air itself bent. A pulse burst from her palm, invisible but heavy like a wave crashing in every direction. The attacking mercs dropped to their knees, screaming, clutching their heads. Jace stared, speechless. Sarah turned back to him, eyes dimming. "They remember," she said. "My blood, my voice." Jace got them back on the ship, engines firing before the ramp even closed. The ship roared to life, breaking through orbit with desperate force. In the cockpit, Jace looked at her. "What are you?" he asked. Sarah looked out the window toward the stars. "Last," she whispered, and hunted. Hours later, when Jace finally rested, Sarah crept into the control room. She touched the ship's old console again. It lit beneath her fingers, reacting like it recognized her. A hidden file opened. A message. In ancient Meraxian. A royal seal flickered. A voice spoke. If she survives, she must reach the cradle. Only there will she unlock what we left behind. Only then will the true empire rise again. Sarah closed the message, and behind her in the shadows of the ship, a small red drone blinked once, then vanished into the air vent. They weren't just being followed. They had already been found. The cradle of truth. The cradle was nothing like Jace expected. As the gray fox drifted down through the thick atmosphere of the forgotten world, clouds rolled beneath them in slow, heavy spirals, glowing with soft blue light. Ancient towers rose from the mist like the bones of a sleeping god, cracked, broken, and silent. The planet had no cities, no spaceports, no signs of life. But the deeper they went, the stronger the ship's systems trembled, like the very air was alive with memory. Sarah stood beside him in the cockpit, her golden eyes fixed on the horizon. "Home," she said again. Only this time, her voice had changed. It wasn't soft or afraid. It was certain. Grounded. As if something inside her had awakened during the journey. Jace landed the ship on a flat stone platform covered in vines. There were no welcome lights. No warnings. Just an eerie stillness that pressed on the chest like grief. He stepped outside with a pulse rifle slung across his back, but Sarah walked ahead of him without fear. The wind stirred her hair. The mist swirled around her like it recognized her. Jace followed close behind, eyes scanning everything. He'd seen war zones, ruins, and haunted tech moons. But this place, it was different. It wasn't dead. It was waiting. They reached a crumbled gate, half sunken into the ground. Strange writing curled across its arch, unreadable to him but glowing faintly under Sarah's touch. As her fingers brushed the symbols, the gate shuddered and opened with a low groan. Not from power, from memory. Inside, the path sloped, downward into darkness, lit only by thin beams of ancient crystal embedded in the walls. The tunnels were cold but dry, silent but not empty. Sarah's steps never paused. She walked as if she had been here before, though Jace knew that was impossible. "How do you know where to go?" he asked. "My dreams," she replied. They were never dreams. They were memories. Jace didn't know what to say. He simply followed. They entered a massive chamber. The ceiling rose high above them, lost in shadow. At the center stood a black stone throne, untouched by time. Beside it, a round platform surrounded by metal pillars, each one humming faintly with a strange energy. Sarah stepped onto the platform. Immediately, the pillars lit up. Symbols spiraled through the air. Holograms appeared. Ancient battles. Royal ceremonies and a girl who looked exactly like Sarah, standing beside a tall woman in golden robes. Jace watched, stunned, as the images told a story. The Meraxian Empire had foreseen their fall. Rebels had breached the palace. The queen had given her daughter over to loyalists who wiped her memory and sent her into hiding. The girl would grow up far away, protected by time, waiting for the day she would return and unlock what was left behind. Sarah turned slowly toward Jace. "I wasn't meant to be found by them," she said. "I was meant to be found by you." He stepped forward, uneasy. "Why me?" "Because the Meraxians feared war, and they knew humans were the only ones who had walked through war and still chosen peace." Jace shook his head. "I'm no hero. You chose kindness when you didn't have to," she said. "That's enough." The holograms shifted again, now showing blueprints, starships the size of moons, cloaking fields, weapons that could fold time, all hidden beneath the surface of the cradle, locked behind genetic seals. Sarah was the key. She reached out and placed her hand on the throne. The ground trembled. Outside, across the surface of the dead world, towers began to rise from the soil. Hangars opened. Machines activated, waking after 100 years of silence. Somewhere deep beneath the planet, engines hummed, not for destruction, but for protection. The cradle was not a tomb. It was a vault. Jace stared as the fleet map flickered to life on the wall. Dozens of ships scattered across the galaxy, dormant, waiting for a signal from their empress. "They're not weapons," Sarah whispered. "They're guardians, each one built to protect, not to rule." But before Jace could speak, the map twisted, flashing red. One of the ships had already been activated by someone else. Someone had broken the seal. Sarah looked at him, face pale. "Someone is waking the fleet before us." "Who?" Jace asked, but he already feared the answer. Someone who knew where to find them. Someone who had tracked them all this way. Someone who wanted power, not peace. They had to move fast. The race to control the last empire had just begun. Betrayal in orbit. The stars above the cradle shimmered with growing unrest. Jace stood on the observation deck of the Gray Fox, staring at the flickering data on the screen. It was worse than he thought. A ship, a massive one, had come online, in a distant system. It bore the signature of the Meraxian fleet, but it wasn't answering Sarah's signal. It was moving under someone else's command. Sarah stood beside him, arms crossed, her face cold and unreadable. The fire in her eyes had not dimmed since they unlocked the vault on the cradle. Something had changed inside her. No longer the frightened girl in chains, she now moved with the quiet weight of someone who had inherited not just a title, but a responsibility. "Whoever controls that ship," she said, "is trying to activate the others." "How?" Jace asked. "I thought only you could do that." Sarah nodded slowly. "Only the bloodline, or someone who's trying to pretend they carry it." Jace frowned. "Like a general, or an old traitor who still wants the throne." Sarah turned to him, her voice low. "Or someone who was once loyal but now wants more." They had no choice but to leave the cradle. Sarah downloaded everything she could from the vault, command codes, maps, and warnings left behind by the old council. The moment they lifted off, the planet sealed itself again, returning to silence. No beacon was sent. No signal was broadcast. The cradle would stay hidden, unless someone else had already marked it. Hours later, they reached neutral space, a floating diplomatic zone between 5 star systems, ruled by none. The kind of place where secrets were traded like fuel, and everyone smiled with knives behind their backs. Jace had sent a call ahead. An old contact named Valen, a broker who once smuggled cryocoffins for a dead empire, agreed to meet. Jace trusted him more than most, which wasn't saying much. They docked with the orbital ring. It was quiet. Too quiet. Jace didn't like it. As they stepped out, Sarah kept her hood low, but people noticed her. Her presence couldn't be hidden anymore. The way she walked, the way the air shifted around her. She didn't need a crown to be recognized. Valen met them in a private chamber lined with sound-dampening tech. Tall, wide-shouldered, and always grinning, he greeted Jace with, "Open arms, you've been busy, human," he said. "Didn't think I'd hear your name again, especially not tied to the last bloodline of Meraxia." Jace kept his hand near his sidearm. "You said you had something for us." Valen's smile widened. "I do. But first you should know. There are offers on her head. Big ones. Whole systems are bidding. Some want her dead. Others want her married to their prince. And a few want her frozen, studied, and dissected." Sarah stepped forward. "What do you want?" Valen's eyes narrowed. "Me. I want history to wake up again, but even I can't stop the vultures, already circling." He handed them a device, a copy of the activation signal used to wake the rogue Meraxian ship. Jace recognized the code, but Sarah stared at it, her breath catching. This code. It belonged to my father's first general. His name was Zorik. He vanished during the war. Valen nodded. Zorik didn't die. He went underground. And now, he's activating ships with your name. Jace looked around. Why tell us all this? Valen sighed. Because I thought you'd run, hide, maybe disappear. But you're marching into fire. So I did what I could. Jace stiffened. What do... You mean did? The doors slammed open. Soldiers poured in, armor marked with Zorik's seal. Valen raised his hands, stepping back. They offered me everything, Jace. Land, rank, legacy. All I had to do was deliver her. Jace reached for his gun, but they were surrounded. Sarah stepped in front of him, eyes blazing. "You will not wear my father's seal," she said to the lead soldier. "You disgrace it." The soldier hesitated just a moment, but it was enough. Sarah raised her hand. The lights flickered. Gravity shifted. Half the room slammed to the floor. Jace lunged, pulling her toward the back exit as the ceiling cracked under the force of her command. They ran. Alarms screamed. Systems crashed. The orbital ring shuddered as they broke through the docking bay and leaped into the Gray Fox. "Engines, now!" Jace shouted, slamming his fist into the console. The ship shot forward just as explosions tore through the docking ring behind them. Enemy ships were already forming a blockade. Sarah took the co-pilot seat, blood on her lip, eyes burning. "He's calling them all," she whispered. "Zorik's waking the old warlords. One by one." "Can you stop him?" Jace asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she looked at him and said, "Not alone." As the stars stretched into lines, Jace didn't notice the quiet motion inside the hull. A black-cloaked figure, hidden for days inside a smuggler's panel, activated a beacon and whispered into the dark. "Target confirmed. The girl is stronger than expected, awaiting extraction orders." The betrayal wasn't over. It had just begun. The true bloodline awakens. The cold silence of deep space wrapped around the Gray Fox like a shroud. Hyperspace had swallowed the stars, but inside the ship, it was no quieter than a battlefield. Jace worked the console with tense hands, rerouting power, scanning for threats, watching the monitors like a man who had seen death too many times and expected to see it again. Sarah sat across from him, quiet, but not still. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim cockpit light, her breath steady, her posture firm. There was no fear left in her. She had burned it all away back at the cradle, in the vault, in the chamber where her family's empire had been buried beneath silence and time. And yet, Jace could tell something was wrong. "You're holding something back," he said, not looking up. Sarah didn't answer at first. Then, in a low voice, she said, "I felt him. When Zorik activated that ship, he's using part of me. My blood. My name." Jace turned. "How?" "Before the war, he was close to my mother. She trusted him. He had access to our royal archives, to the genetic links that command the fleet. When I was a child, he even carried me once during a parade." Her voice faltered. "He could have stolen my imprint." Jace's jaw tightened. "So he's pretending to be you?" "Not pretending," she said. "He's using a shadow of me to command what should be mine." They were headed toward the outer rim, to the remnants of a planet once ruled by loyal Meraxian knights. The record said the place had fallen to silence after the war, its temples abandoned, its data sealed. But Sarah believed something still lingered there, something that could help her take back control of the fleet. As they neared orbit, alarms screamed. A blockade. A black flag dreadnought hovered above the planet like a blade, and Jace recognized its markings immediately. Zorik's crest. He had arrived first. "No sneaking past that," Jace muttered. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Then we don't sneak." Before Jace could stop her, she activated the ship's external broadcast. Her voice echoed across open space, regal, clear, and unmistakable. "I am Sarah Meraxia, daughter of the last queen. I do not yield. Lower your weapons and let me pass." For a long, terrible moment, nothing. Then the dreadnought replied. Zorik's voice came through, deep, smooth, and laced with poison. "My dear princess, I kept your throne warm for you, but I'm afraid you're a little late." He sent fighters, fast and silent, wrapped in dark energy shields. The battle exploded into the void. Jace flew like a man possessed, twisting the Gray Fox through enemy fire, dodging torpedoes, spinning between blasts. He shouted commands, but Sarah was already moving, pulling energy from hidden systems inside, the ship she had touched and changed back at the cradle. With a burst of unknown power, she disabled 3 fighters with a pulse wave. Jace dove into the planet's atmosphere and aimed straight for the ruined temple grounds. They crash-landed hard. Metal screamed. Dust flew. Alarms blared, but they survived. Jace crawled from the wreckage, blood on his temple. He turned just in time to see Sarah standing in the smoke, walking toward the temple doors like a queen returned to her broken kingdom. Inside, they found the heart of the ancient stronghold. Murals told stories of the Meraxian rise, of a chosen bloodline not by birth alone but by will. And there, at the center, a glowing pedestal waited. Sarah stepped forward and placed both hands on the stone. The room trembled. A burst of golden light shot upward, sending a shockwave across the sky. A beacon only the Meraxian fleet could sense. Every dormant ship across the stars paused. The old codes stirred. The shadows Zorik had used flickered, and then the truth pushed back. Sarah's voice echoed through every ancient vessel, every hidden drone, every royal AI. I am no copy. I am no echo. I am the true heir. Obey me, and only me. In space, ships began changing course. Jace stared in awe. You did it, he whispered. But Sarah collapsed. Blood spilled from her nose, her eyes, her ears. Her body couldn't handle the full surge of power. She had forced the connection too soon, too fast. Jace caught her as she fell. Stay with me, he begged. Her voice was faint. I opened the gate, but it's not done yet. He's still out there. Then her eyes rolled back. Suddenly a shadow moved in the corner. The black-cloaked stowaway from the gray fox, hidden until now, stepped forward and drew a long blade. You weren't supposed to awaken her fully, he said coldly. Jace didn't wait. He charged. The final battle was no longer between 2 empires. It had become something else. One human, one princess, and a universe about to choose between peace and conquest. A crown of freedom dawn broke across the ruins like a breath of light, returning to lungs long since still. The great temple of the Meraxian bloodline lay half-shattered, its pillars scorched, its walls cracked by time and war. And in the heart of it, surrounded by dust, smoke, and silence, Jace knelt beside the unconscious girl who had changed the course of everything. Sarah's face was pale, too pale. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Blood had dried along her temple, and her fingers twitched with phantom energy. The echo of the ancient fleet's system still running through her fragile body. Jace tightened the grip on his rifle, standing between her and the black-cloaked assassin who had emerged from the shadows only moments before. The man was tall, clean, too clean for someone who had traveled in a smuggler's hideaway for days. His voice was smooth, almost bored. You should have let her die quietly, he said. Zorik would have given you a planet for your silence. Jace didn't answer. He fired instead. The assassin dodged, fast, inhumanly fast, on blade singing through the air as he closed the distance. The 2 clashed beside the fallen throne, Jace barely keeping up, countering each strike with instinct and desperation. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't trained for this, but he fought like someone who had nothing left to lose. The assassin slashed across his shoulder. Pain burned hot. Jace stumbled, then ducked low, rolling across the floor and grabbing a shard of broken crystal from the ground. When the blade came down again, he stabbed upward with the shard. It sank deep into the man's side. A scream tore from the assassin's mouth, twisted and not quite human. He collapsed. Jace dropped beside Sarah again, wiping blood from her lips, whispering her name. Wake up, kid. You've come too far to give up now. Nothing. But then, a whisper. So soft he barely heard it. They're listening. He turned. The air shimmered. And then, in the sky above the ruined temple, the clouds split open. Not from weather, not from ships, but from presence. Dozens of Meraxian vessels broke through the clouds in perfect silence. Massive, silver, elegant beyond anything Jace had seen in his life. Each one bore the royal crest, but this time they responded to a true voice. Sarah's signal. They had chosen. One ship descended, hovering above the temple. A wide beam of light extended down, bathing the chamber in golden warmth. Jace lifted her gently, stepping into the light, his boots crackling against broken stone. A door opened mid-air. They entered. The interior of the flagship was alive with ancient tech. Walls pulsed with soft energy. Systems recognized Sarah's presence immediately. The moment she was laid on the medical platform, robotic arms moved gently, scanning, healing, stabilizing. A voice filled the chamber. Soft, female, ancient. Genetic match confirmed. Royal bloodline restored. Command unlocked. Sarah's body glowed for a moment, then calmed. Her eyes opened. The next hours passed in a blur. Broadcasts spread across neutral space. Factions that had hunted her now received messages marked with the true seal. Systems that had feared her now bent the knee. Rebel warlords, bounty hunters, empire remnants, all now faced a choice. Serve the heir, or be buried by the rising wave of something they thought extinct. Sarah stood before the fleet, her voice stronger than ever. The Meraxian Empire was never meant to conquer, she said. We were meant to protect. That purpose was lost, but not anymore. The bloodline lives, and with it, peace returns, not by force, but by choice. Across the galaxy, ships powered down their weapons. On war-torn planets, ceasefires began, and far from the spotlight, Zorik, watching from a distant hidden base, turned away from the screen and screamed as his command links were severed. One by one, he was no longer the voice the fleet obeyed. He had been erased. Later, on a balcony overlooking the stars, Jace stood quietly, watching the fleet move like a school of silver whales across the black. Sarah joined him, dressed in flowing robes not of royalty, but of someone who had chosen to lead, not rule. You didn't have to stay, she said. I know, Jace replied. But you still don't know how to fly that ship. She smiled. You're not like the others. No, he said. I just wanted to keep a promise to someone who looked at me with golden eyes and didn't beg, just waited to be seen. She stepped closer, her voice soft. You're not my guard anymore. Then what am I? He asked. She took his hand. You're the reason I'm free. And far below, on the quiet world once called the cradle, the stone throne remained empty, because the true crown was never meant for one head alone. It was meant for two hearts, one born royal, and one who chose to stand beside her, forever.